They laughed at her, dismissed her, and called her a nobody. But just 10 minutes later, she walked back in, not as a customer, but as their boss. What happened next shut down the entire bank. She walked into the bank like any regular customer, quiet, respectful, and patient. But what the staff saw wasn't her professionalism, it was her skin color. They judged her, mocked her, and turned her away without even asking her name. What they didn't know was that the woman they just humiliated had the power to shut the whole place down, and within minutes, that's exactly what she did. This is the true story of how one woman exposed everything without saying a single harsh word. It was just an ordinary Thursday morning when a well-dressed black woman walked into a neighborhood bank in Atlanta. She wasn't flashy, didn't come in with a large entourage, and didn't demand any special treatment. She simply walked up to the counter, patiently waited her turn, and asked to speak with the branch manager. What happened next would turn this quiet bank into the center of a shocking lesson in power, prejudice, and poetic justice. The woman, whose name was intentionally withheld at the time, was calm, composed, and polite. But the moment she opened her mouth to speak, something in the air changed. The tellers behind the counter exchanged glances. One of them whispered something under her breath. And when the manager came out of his glass office, the temperature in the room seemed to drop even further. He didn't greet her with a smile. He didn't ask how he could help. Instead, with an arrogant smirk, he folded his arms and asked, "Do you have an appointment?" She replied that she didn't, but she had important business regarding the branch's recent performance. That should have been enough to trigger some curiosity, or at least professionalism. But instead, the manager waved her off with a chuckle. "Look, ma'am," he said, "we're a little busy today. We don't handle personal disputes during business hours. If you're here about your account, please take a seat. Otherwise, we can't help you." Still composed, the woman calmly said, "This won't take long." But the manager had already turned his back. That's when one of the tellers said it loud enough for customers to hear, "These people always think they're more important than they are." That's when things shifted. Not with anger, but with quiet authority. The woman took out her phone, made a single call, and stepped outside. For 10 long minutes, the staff went about their day, laughing, gossiping, and high-fiving like they'd just shut down some kind of scam. But when 3 black SUVs pulled up in front of the bank, all that laughter died. Out stepped a team of corporate investigators, 2 regional directors, and a legal advisor, all employees of the parent company that owned the bank. And trailing behind them was the same black woman they had just humiliated. Only now, they didn't see her as an annoyance. They saw her for who she truly was, the new chief operating officer of the entire banking corporation. Not only was she their boss, she was the one leading the surprise inspection that had been scheduled for months. What the staff didn't know was that she had intentionally arrived unannounced, dressed in everyday business attire, to observe how her team was treating ordinary customers. The goal was to identify patterns of discrimination and unprofessional conduct that had been quietly reported from branches across the region. And this branch? It had just failed in spectacular fashion. Within minutes, the manager was removed from the premises. The teller who made the racist remark was terminated on the spot. An emergency staff audit was conducted, and by the end of the day, the entire branch was temporarily closed for restructuring and retraining. What had started as casual disrespect toward a stranger ended with every employee learning a lesson they'd never forget. You never know who you're really dealing with. The woman never raised her voice. She never threatened anyone. She simply let the truth speak louder than any insult. Because sometimes justice doesn't need to shout. Sometimes it arrives quietly, wearing a power suit, carrying a clipboard, and running the whole show. Respect should never depend on appearance. In just 10 minutes, a quiet woman reminded an entire team and the world that real power doesn't need to boast. It watches, it listens, and when the time is right, it acts. The lesson here? Treat everyone with dignity, because you never know who's actually in charge.